How to Make Our Mental Pictures Come True, a series of easy lessons in the art of visualizing by George Schuebel, copyright 1922. Part 1, The Mechanics of Visualizing. How to Make Our Mental Pictures Come True, Chapter 1, Photography of the Mind. In establishing a basis for the study of visualizing, we can think of no more simple beginning than to compare it to photography. The theory, the mechanical principles, and the technique applying to both are the same. Visualizing is the inner process, while photography merely is the outer process. Or we can say that the one is the hidden process and the other is the hidden process revealed. In visualizing, a method of mental operation is employed which brings into play a group of principles operating innerly in mind. Photography employs a method of operation which brings into play this same group of principles. The difference being that they are operating outwardly in reproducing outward things. The various mental movements necessary in reproducing the thought images or mental objects of our consciousness are no different, as we shall see, from the various movements necessary on the part of the photographer in reproducing an outer object. Briefly stated, visualizing is an inner application of certain principles of which we can become cognizant by observing the corresponding outer application which we call photography. In fact, photography is visualizing made outwardly visible to our objective senses. It is visualizing visualized into outward form so that outward things can be reproduced for us in the same manner in which they are reproduced in the mind. Hence, if we begin our studies by an understanding of the theory and working processes of photography, we will begin to understand the theory and working processes involved in mental photography, and at the same time we will lay the basis for an exact and definite science of visualizing which will serve us at all times and for every purpose. We know that when we apply the principles of photography, when we operate the mechanical parts of the camera, the lens, the rangefinder, the shutter, in a certain way, and when we apply the proper chemical elements in a proper manner, then we are able to reproduce an object with unerring accuracy. So with the mental, mechanical, and chemical principles and faculties involved in reproducing our desires and thought images. When we apply them correctly, we will get outward results that are just as definite, just as truthful, just as accurate reproductions as these produced by the intelligent photographer. Of course, diligent study and application are necessary. The photographer could not be successful in his reproductions if he were not completely familiar with the essentials and methods involved in reproducing objects. And in the same manner, we must be completely familiar with the essentials and methods involved in visualizing if we are to expect the same positive results. The law of cause and effect applies here as elsewhere. In addition, we need to believe in the outcome of our work. Somewhat later, we will touch more fully upon this point. Let us simply say here that we do not disbelieve the fact of photography. We do not doubt that its employment will bring about certain definite results in the matter of reproduction. So as we go forward in our studies, we will find that there is as little occasion to disbelieve the fact of visualizing or to doubt that its employment in our affairs will bring about just as definite results. For the present, it is sufficient to believe that everything into which our desire can fashion itself already exists and has always existed as a paradigm in the patterned mind of the infinite. Otherwise, it could not be conceived or formulated in our own mind as an object. We can refer to photography itself, for instance, to make this more clear. The camera, first of all, had to be an object in someone's mind before it took outward form. Someone thought of it, or in other words, pictured it before it could be assembled in the form of a camera which we can touch and see. So with all the other devices which are a part of photography. If then the camera and all the other essentials of photography can reproduce and outpicture the object toward which they are directed, how much more easily it is possible for the inner photographic equipment of the mind, under like suitable conditions, to reproduce and outpicture the object of our heart's desire, toward which it is directed by means of proper thinking. End of chapter 1. How to Make Our Mental Pictures Come True, a series of easy lessons in the art of visualizing by George Schuebel. Copyright 1922. Part 1. The Mechanics of Visualizing. Chapter 2. Substance out of which our mental pictures are made. Before entering upon a study of the mechanical properties and technique involved in photography, we are confronted with the same necessity which confronts the really good photographer. He must make himself familiar with the facts with which his mechanics and technique must deal, and so must we. We must familiarize ourselves with those mental factors with which our mind mechanics and technique deal. Let us see how this holds good in photography in order to apply it to our own study. We know that in photography, the very first of these factors is the object which is to be reproduced. If the photographer has studied physical science, he is familiar with the fact that this so-called object or concrete thing is reducible by formula into a state of lesser and lesser density until it can be resolved back to its original state. He knows that if the formula could be pursued, his object would be reduced to a point where it could become again a part of the universal substance to which physical science has given the name of ether. This all-pervading substance is believed to be the basis of all material objects. The study of visualizing must be based upon the same hypothesis, except that it goes a step beyond that of physical science and refers to a substance infinitely rarer as the basis of all things whatsoever hidden or revealed. The photographer, in pursuing his physical science studies, is informed that the most distinguishing quality of this ether substance is light. Wherever ether is, light is, and since this radiant ether substance is everywhere present, light is also everywhere present in all the reaches and immensity of infinite space. In fact, physical science will someday accept the fact that there can be no substance without light and no light without substance. It is only a difference of vibration and tenuity, which makes the seeming difference between what we know as pure light and matter, and the student will so understand this when substance or light are hereafter interchangeably used. In visualizing, we learn this same fact about the infinitely rare, all-pervading, invisible substance with which we are to deal mentally, namely that its most distinguishing quality is this same light, but in a mode of vibration infinitely rarer and finer than physical science can conceive. In fact, we are coming to find that what our very mind substance is charged with is ambient quality in its purest state, acting upon, in, and through it. We speak of this light of the mind as being above the light of the sun in rarity. We speak of it as the unseen light that never shone on land or sea. And its wonderfully luminous power is implied when we say that a certain person has enlightened us, or when we say light has been given us, or light has been thrown upon the subject. Also we speak of the light of understanding, the light of wisdom, the light of faith, and of a number of other illumined mental conditions and activities qualified by this mental light. The qualification in every instance is more than figurative. It is scientifically correct. So much so that we can say that this light of wisdom, understanding, and faith is not only a qualification, but that it is mind itself and the primary basis of all mind substance. So we can say that in the same manner in which the outward light serves as the luminous and vitalizing basis of the ether substance from which all things of the visible universe, including our physical selves, are formed, so in an infinitely rarer sense does the invisible light serve as the basis of that radiant mind substance which we call life, spirit, energy, or consciousness, and out of this light, as we shall subsequently see, our mental pictures take form. End of chapter 2. Substance out of which our mental pictures are made, of How to Make Our Mental Pictures Come True by George Schuebel.